تفضل.
Anwar Ali, London, UK. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's the ruling on sensing regret in oneself after having given a lot of charity?
Question comes from London. What's the ruling on sensing regret in oneself after have given a lot of charity? طيب. Bismillah. Charity that is recommended is recommended. You do not have to do it. You do not have to give it. If you wish to give it, then give it. If it's too much, or charity from a specific part of your wealth that's going to hurt you and bother you, and you're not upon or on that level, then you should refrain therefrom. Refrain from it. Because it isn't mandatory. However, if you wish to make a jihad against yourself, fight yourself, push your nafs to the level of feeling comfort, feeling rest with sacrificing your personal pleasures and comforts, then that is a worthy struggle. That's a worthy struggle. So therefore, when we say struggle or struggle within, under any circumstance doesn't mean that it's going to be simple and easy and peachy. There's going to be some pain involved. It's going to hurt a little bit. But eventually, bid'inai ta'ala, you keep making dua, you keep reminding yourself of the virtues, you see the rewards of it, and what Allah gives you back, you grow stronger and stronger, inshallah ta'ala, and change your nafs by Allah's permission. But if you're not willing, or you're unwilling to do that, or you know it's too difficult for you, then stick with that which is simple and easy. And even if you only did the mandatory things and avoided the haram things, you will be successful. Wallahu alam.
Initials AB, Brooklyn, New York. Assalamu alaikum. A person invests $100,000 into a business under a contract of receiving a percentage profit of that business for 10 years, which is estimated to exceed $10,000. Is this riba? If not, please explain why.
Questions from where?
Brooklyn, New York.
Questions from Brooklyn, New York, with regards to a Muslim investing money, a specific or capped amount, and the projected income or outcome from this business within 10 years or 20 years is much, much more than what they invested. Is this riba? If so, explain, etc. No, it's not riba, because it isn't a loan based off of the question. Rather, it's an investment. I'm loaning you $100,000. 10 years later, you have to pay me back $100,000. Khalas. Rather, I'm investing $100,000. And in 10 years, I, inshallah, expect to see $1 million. Because it's not a loan. I also bear responsibilities of loss and gain and so on and so forth. An investment is not a loan, it's a difference. Wallahu alam.
Initials SH, Sheffield, UK. How did the people of the past wake themselves up to Fajr without an alarm clock?
Question comes from Sheffield, UK. How did the people of the past wake themselves up for Fajr without an alarm clock? Our times are very different than their times. I don't think we can even begin to make a comparison between life, having a refrigerator in your house, a freezer in your house, a deep freezer, in which any time of the day, any day of the week, any week from a month, any month out of the year, you can have whatever you want. In my refrigerator, my freezer, let alone cans and dried goods, dehydrated, evaporated things. You want milk? We have milk. You want fish? You want beef, lamb, goat, chicken? You want string beans? You want okra? You want asparagus, cabbage, everything at the tip of your fingers. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, let alone 1400 years ago, 1200 years ago, there were seasons in which certain fruits you couldn't get. There were parts of the world in which there were fruits you couldn't eat. Animals you couldn't find. You had to go out and hunt. Times in which there was no meat to eat at all. So our life is extremely different than 50 years ago, let alone what? 100 years ago. Just stop and think about live stream. Think about HadithDisciple. What was HadithDisciple nowadays without live stream, Khalid? What would it be like? Without live stream, huh? He said blessed. A lot of people would be upset. It wouldn't be the same. But just a couple years ago, 5 years ago, there was what? No such thing as what? Live stream. Don't we realize that in 2019, 20 years ago, where was Facebook? Instagram. These staple things of our daily lives now that didn't exist. And no one asks, well, how do they live? People, they lived, they existed. So our lives are very different. Many things that we get as an advantage, oftentimes a disadvantage. Many things that we look at as blessings may be tests, let alone possibly curses. So therefore, if a person didn't have an alarm clock, oftentimes they didn't need an alarm clock. How people lived, how they woke up, how they went to sleep, what they ate, how much they ate, how they walked and traveled, things were different. So you going to sleep naturally and waking up naturally was different. You could actually hear the adhan, the distraction, the white noise, the static, the radiation and all that stuff. It didn't exist. All right? So that's one way of looking at it. And another way of looking at it is people always had people to wake them up as well. And people always overslept, no matter what. The Prophet ﷺ says, Man nama an salatin. Oh, nasiya. Whoever oversleeps for a prayer. So oversleeping, it can take place and it can happen. But life was simpler. It was easier. It was just more basic, more natural in those times in which they didn't need all of the technological terrors that we have nowadays. And if they did need them, then they had other substitutes, such as a human being waking them up, or a rooster waking them up. Things like this, right? Wallahu alam.
Initials MQ, reading UK, Assalamualaikum Mufti. I saw a colorful wizard in my dream, close to my ear, and then it turns dark and holds me down. And I can't get up, it holds your shoulders down, and you shouting out, La ilaha illallah multiple times. And then you see two words on his chest. I think yes and pity. I think yes and pity was in an 8 infinite sign, but with a kind of white lining, if I remember correctly. And yeah, that's it.
Type. Question from Reading, UK. With regards to something that you see in your sleep that holds you down, looks a certain way, Allahu alam, what colors it has, etc. Many people call this sleep paralysis. Many people call it that. Is it a phenomenon? Is it some type of dream? Is it some type of hallucination? Is it some type of paranormal state? Half sleep, half awake? Or is it a jinn? Is it shaitan, a shaitan? Is it sihr, etc.? It's going to be difficult to say yes or no because everyone is different. Are there things that take place in a person's sleep? Without a question. Are there dreams? Yes. Can a person be half awake, half asleep? Yes. Some consciousness, but the soul is still taken out of the body? Of course. Are there jinn? Yes. Is there sihr? Without a question. It's going to be difficult to accurately, precisely say exactly what this is. Everybody's situation is different. What's important is make sure that you go to sleep with wudu. Make sure you go to sleep mentioning Allah's name, saying the proper dhikr. Make sure that your room, make sure that your house, bidnillahi ta'ala, is purified of things that could possibly attract these types of things, whether it's jinn, shayateen, sihr, or whether it is your own mind traveling, or lack of proper sleep and disturbed sleep, etc. And Allah knows best.
It shows HP, Sacramento, California. Mufti, what are some techniques to protect myself from hypocrisy?
Tayyip. Repeat the question, please. This is our last question tonight.
Initials HP, Sacramento, California. Mufti, what are some techniques to help protect myself from hypocrisy?
Tayyip. What are some of the techniques to help prevent myself from hypocrisy? Khairan inshallah. Something that we all need, starting with myself. Thinking about how bad and how ugly hypocrisy is. And what Allah says about the people who are called munafiqun. And why Allah calls them that. So the greater that you think about the ugliness of a thing, then hopefully that will produce and that would translate to more fuel to pushing you further away from that thing. Like someone chasing after you. The bigger, the scarier, the uglier the monster is, that should produce more speed for you to run away from it further and faster. Give you more motivation not to get caught by it. So just look into hypocrisy and look into its reality and why it's so ugly. Look at the rewards of it in this life and in the hereafter. What happens to someone who is hypocritical, let alone an actual munafiq. So educate yourself about it more and more and more, and remind yourself about the ugliness of nifaq. Saying what you don't do, lying, breaking a promise, behaving in an ignorant way when you argue and when you fight, and the list goes on of the attributes of the munafiqun. Educate yourself and remind yourself of the ugliness of that thing, and hopefully bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that will push you further away from it, along with the other practical steps, and that is to do the opposite. Instead of focusing on the munafiqun and focusing on not being like them, focus on being like the mu'minun, those who pray when Allah's name is mentioned, when the Quran is recited to them, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, they spend out of their wealth, etc. Focus on what you're supposed to be doing, instead of always focusing on what you're what? Not supposed to be doing. But sometimes it goes like a seesaw. In order to do the right thing, focus on what you're not supposed to be doing. And sometimes you just need to focus on what you're supposed to be doing and not get caught and stuck on what you're not supposed to be like. Everyone understand this? They asked a man once who was a Las Vegas casino performer. He was a knife thrower. And his partner was a lady who would be connected to the board. And he would throw the knives and hit the wooden board behind her and not her body. So they interviewed him. He was doing it for all of these years. He was a great, skilled knife thrower. And he says, well, how you've never hit her, you've never cut her. They asked her, how do you trust him so much? How are you so good? And so on and so on and so forth. And blah, 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 so on and so forth. How do you avoid her, etc. He says, well, I'm not avoiding her. I'm not avoiding her. I'm not looking at her when I'm throwing my knives. Instead of me avoiding hitting her with a knife, I'm aiming for another spot. You understand? The mindset is different. You're thinking that I'm trying to avoid her with a knife. And me, I'm thinking of not even, she's not there. This is my target. And I'm aiming for my target with my knife. And this is from the reasons or the ways that I hit it accurately, because I'm not thinking about not hitting her, but I'm thinking about hitting my target. Everyone understand this wisdom? So I think that's good. And there are many other things as well. Allah surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.